Hello, everybody, and welcome to the final episode of Fallout Equestria. Oh, no, we're good. I thought I hit the end stream button. Complete disaster. But, yeah, here we are. The final episode. The Virtue of Littlepip. God dang. This is gonna be rough. It's been a journey. It's been a ride. Sorry, I'm just writing something up here. I'm doing okay. So, the end of an era. We have finally finished Fallout Equestria for the most part. We have only 3 more parts to go. This and 2 extras that we will be covering in this final part. And it's sad. It's sad. I gotta admit. This has been a several-month-long journey just to get to this point. A lot of long nights, a lot of pain, long hours, and a lot of stuff. But we're here. Now, the ending of the last chapter, Littlepip got smoked by Spike and got turned into a Rice Krispie treat. It's rough, you know? Just really trying to savor this. This is it. We're finished with FOE after this. So I'm kind of hesitant to start here, I gotta admit. But I know I must, so without further ado, the last section of Fallout Equestria. Chapter 45, The Virtue of Littlepip. But it was not until the end of this long road that the stable dweller learned the true meaning of that greatest of virtues. Sacrifice. Sacrifice. The wasteland will try to tear you down, make you a monster, or strip you of your will to fight. The wasteland, and to a lesser degree, life itself. Every day is a struggle against the forces that attempt to compromise and erode anything good in your heart. It helps to have a cause, a purpose, but I have seen too many who have put their faith in those alone and been led grievously astray. Every pony has a virtue, whether they realize it or not, and it is your virtue and your friends together that form your greatest defense. Raiders are those who failed to weather the moral ravages of the wasteland. Velvet Remedy was wrong. They do have a reason for existing. The wasteland is the cause to their effect. I had finally discovered my virtue. I should have realized it when I first looked into the mirror of the soul. But I was too blinded by what I saw. A blood-coated, dying raider to recognize what the mirror was actually showing me. The first time I truly acted in the spirit of sacrifice. The time when, even though I stood no chance of survival, I placed myself between a helpless caravan and what I believed to be a Pegasus raider, intent on slaughtering them. That raider had been Calamity, and that act had initiated the first and closest friendship I have ever known. I should have recognized the truth in the mirror, but it took Pinkie Pie to help me see how to see. You're just looking at it wrong, she told me, pointing to the mirror. but not to me, pointing instead to the approaching caravan and the family I was giving my life to protect. Look behind you. My virtue is sacrifice. I believe in Pinkie Pie, in sunshine and rainbows, but of all the ministry mares, I think it has been Rarity, not Pinkie Pie, that I felt the greatest connection to. The mare whose last act was to save her dearest friend, who tore apart her own soul for those she loved. My feelings are not surprising, for sacrifice and generosity are closely tied, but generosity is a much grander virtue with a much wider scope. I am not generous. I have never given anything but myself. And upon reflection, my sacrifice was often selfish, a vehicle to protect those I love from facing harm, even when it was their right to do so. My mistake in Philadelphia are perhaps the most brutal example. After my final discourse with Red Eye, I began to realize that I had been like an overprotective mother, stifling the growth of those I loved. Only now, finally, was I learning to let go, and still, it was the hardest and most painful thing for me to do, sending my friends into battle against the Enclave without me, putting Ditzy-Doo, the spirit of laughter and one of the most beautiful souls in the equestrian wasteland, on the front lines. It tore my heart out to not merely allow others to sacrifice, but to ask them to. No, I was not truly generous. I was not Rarity, not even Red Eye, nor was I truly Apple Snack, but sacrifice lies in that space between generosity and perseverance, between the desire to give so that others don't have to, and the drive to never give up, no matter the danger, no matter the cost. I cannot give enough thanks for my friends. They guided me, protected me, and allowed my virtue to blossom into something that just might, in a small way, help save Equestria itself. Without my friends, virtues can become corrupted, metamorphosizing into dark and twisted shadows of themselves. This is a truth I have both seen in others and felt in myself. Without the fortifying strength of friendship, sacrifice becomes self-destructive, the sort of false nobility that drove me to blindly leave Stable 2, even though part of me believed all I would find beyond the door was oblivion. I quiver to think what I would have become and what would have become of me, had I not met Calamity when and how I did. Without the camaraderie of friendship to light the way, it is so easy to get lost. I have observed this, and I have witnessed so much worse. Monterey Jack committed suicide. That was not the virtue of sacrifice at play, not even a corrupted manifestation of it, but the utterly selfish, absolute lack of it. Monterey Jack abandoned everything, even his children, because he no longer had the ability to make even the most simple of sacrifices: living. Selfishness tells us that it is more important for us to have, to get, and to not suffer than it is for anyone else, just by merit of our experience being ours and everyone else's not so. Generosity is not immunity to those impulses, but an ability to act counter to them, to give to others at the cost of not having for yourself. Sacrifice demands you put at risk that which you hold precious. To do so, even when another might be willing to instead, especially then, so that no other has to. I face the fire, not for my own sake, but for the chance to save lives, to remove the cause to the war's effect, and to give ponies across the equestrian wasteland something precious, something vital which had been stolen from them. I hoped that I was helping give them all a better world, and yet at the same time, I couldn't help but wonder if it was a world I would have any place in. The mirror had shown me my true virtue, but I had not seen it. Distracted by the image of what I had become, All the lives I have saved can't wash the blood off my hooves or stop the nightmares born from all the horrors I have witnessed. When the Overmare had invited me back into Stable 2, I walked away. I knew the truth. That day I truly tasted the virtue of sacrifice and recognized it for what it was. But I don't think I truly understood sacrifice until today. The day I died. I died. I remember the first time I saw Velvet Remedy. The couple living across the hall from my mother and me had gone to the stable's best young talent show in the atrium. They left their little colt with the babysitter. According to the babysitter, she'd only turned her tail for a few moments, but in those seconds, the colt had slipped into the bathtub, hit his head, and drowned. She called for emergency help. The clinic was only a few halls away, adjacent to the atrium, and the medical ponies made the gallop in under a minute. Half the stable seemed to arrive within 4, including Velvet Remedy, who had been singing when the news broke. She'd cut her song, rushing along with their parents and the gawkers to see if the colt was going to be saved. The colt was revived, Mother said repeatedly. And to any pony who would listen, that the colt had been clinically dead for over 2 minutes. I remember thinking how beautiful Velvet Remedy looked as she tried to follow the medical ponies, taking the colt back to the clinic and was directed away. To think the crush that set all of this into motion had started that evening. I died. I came back. The frickin' what? That's wild. Sorry, distracted. Faith doesn't require you to be willingly blind or dogmatically stupid. I knew as I faced the fire that it was going to be more painful than anything I'd suffered before, and I was almost certainly going to die. But I also knew there was a chance, if only just a chance, that death might be survivable. And Pinkie Pie had promised me sunshine and rainbows. Faith does require that you take risks. Sometimes you have to risk everything. I said I would burn it, Rarity had insisted to Applejack after the other mare had called her on her still having the black book. And I tried. I even tried to have Spike burn it. All that did was send it to Princess Celestia. The black book. A soul jar bound with the living soul. If it could survive the trip, soul intact, then there had been a chance. If just a chance, that so could I. Returning from death by incineration was admittedly more severe than coming back from drowning and a whole league beyond regrowing a leg. I came back. Didn't I? Everything was darkness. Like the nothingness I had once feared was outside the door of my stable home. The darkness was cold. I wasn't in pain, but I could feel myself breathe, feel the beat of my heart, the press of my clothing, and the weight of my saddlebags on my back. I also felt cold, polished rock beneath my hooves. The room around me rushed into being the second I realized my eyes were closed, and in doing so, instinctively opened them. I swayed, hit with a tsunami of intense relief that left me feeling strangely euphoric and more than a little bit foolish. I was in what I guessed to be a reception room. I chose to assume I was in the central hub of the Single Pegasus project. If this was heaven, it left a lot to be desired. If it was hell, then hell was lame. I was in a sizable, circular room with cool azure walls visible between cloud-white columns rising from a mist-covered marble floor. Above me, clouds floated in patterns beneath a dome of hazy slate blue. The walls were covered in painted snowflakes, each with a beautiful clear gemstone set into the corner, a shower of diamonds. There were railings, counters, and carved marble furniture, all covered with glistening sheen of frost. The room was chilly, but not freezing. The frost itself was enchanted, radiating the cold that filled the chamber. The frost had slowly spread to cover much of the columns and patches of both the walls and the ceilings. In another 50 years, the entire room might have been covered. There were 2 exits behind me a set of gabled silver double doors which matched the ones I had seen on the exterior of the central hub, while I was banging on the shield. Opposite those grander doors was a single small, unassuming door which must have led further inside. A latticework of metal and icicles arched between two of the pillars between myself and the smaller door. 3 huge monitors, each nearly the size of a pony, were mounted on the latticework, their screens a dull, dead gray. A nearly identical latticework arched between the 2 pillars nearest to the set of the silver doors. The icicles formed words between arching bands of silver. Winter vestibule. Ugh. But my little pony protested irrationally. It's summer. Against a far wall, I spotted a few empty wall vendors and a sunrise sarsaparilla machine. A bottle of sarsaparilla stood on the arm of one of the chairs next to me, inches from the bones of a forehoof. The magical coating of frost on the chair had turned the liquid contents ice cold. All about me collapsed on the furniture or scattered about the floor were the skeletons of ponies. Ugh. Those on the floor formed small islands of bone in the mist, maybe a dozen in all. I trod carefully. If my suspicions were correct, one of these skeletons might be the former body of the goddess Celestia. I winced as my hoof came down on the metal clamp of a clipboard. Looking down at it, I was struck by nostalgic memories of Calamity and Steel Hooves joking about Stubbornite. A small smile played across my muzzle before I refocused my attention. Spike had, to my knowledge, never sent anything to any pony other than Princess Celestia. I had only my faith in Pinkie Pie's words that this time, his fire would take me where I needed to be in order to bring sunshine and rainbows back to Equestria. I cannot deny that the reason it might do so is because that location and Celestia's final resting place might be one and the same. The shield around the SPP was designed to let either of the princesses through, and I had never found her bones in Canterlot. It seemed to me that if she had died there with her sister, then Nightseer would have probably been wearing both. Although perhaps not. Perhaps, as the Alicorn's name suggested, she had a particular affinity for the princess of the night and moon. Near the silver doors was the corpse of a mare, not a skeleton like the others, but an intact body. Her eyes opened wide, staring at nothing. The winter vestibule was not cold enough to freeze the body, but the chill was enough to dramatically slow decomposition. Still, I suspected she had not been here for more than a few weeks, and it disturbed me deeply that I had become enough of a connoisseur of death and dead bodies that I felt I could make such estimation. There were no marks, no wounds or signs of trauma. Like me, she was not burned, she was just dead. Her eyes wide open as if in mortal terror. Had she, my mind conjectured, died of shock when I faced the burning death of Dragon's Fire. I had been hoping for this. I had no doubt that for her, it had been completely unexpected. As I reached out a hoof, gently closing her eyes, I wondered what her last thought had been. My hoof froze an inch from her face as it struck me that I might know those eyes. Though weeks of slow decay had rendered them strange, they could have been the eyes of that one Enclave mare, one of the intruders into the dragon's cave that Spike had slain. I didn't understand. Why was she here? And if she was, then why wasn't the room full of propeller parts and everything else consumed by Spike's breath? I stared at the decomposing body of the mare in confused dismay. I had faced the fire of a dragon based on faith, thin evidence, and a cripplingly desperate lack of options. If she was sent here by the same way, then something must have made her different, just as something had made me different. But she wasn't guided by a precognitive voice from the past. She wasn't the Lightbringer. She wasn't even a message. But then, in a twisted way, wasn't she? Spike had certainly been trying to send a message to the Enclave. A dull pain began to thud in my mind as I thought about it. Did forces such as destiny, purpose, and intention play a part in dragon magic? If so, then it was not in the way ponies conceived of such things. Maybe they mattered in a more mysterious and nebulous existential way. I doubt Spike intended to send this mare anywhere, any more than he had planned to send the Black Book. I felt a sudden weakness in my knees as I glimpsed the breadth of my lack of understanding. I felt suddenly like I had taken my leap of faith without even grasping the idea of gravity. The chill of the room began to seep in as I stood over the Enclave mare. Deep in thought, I recalled part of a tale Spike had told us, how a hiccup had sent a bundle of scrolls tumbling down on Celestia's head. It was an accident, but they were scrolls. Their purpose was to bear messages. The Black Book itself desired for its influence to be spread. Or maybe this dead mare wasn't who I believed she was, and I was just spinning nonsensical wheels in my head. How does she get in and out? I had asked Lionheart, looking at pink warped glass ball which had centuries before been designed to hold a small pet. Dragon magic. I winced, an unpleasant ache in the back of my brain. Dragon magic. One more thing to add to the list of stuff that makes my head hurt. Right up there between Enclave politics and rock farming. But still, below pony-pulled train engines. I finished closing the mare's eyelids down over her staring, lifeless eyes. Then, shuddering slightly from more than the cold, I rotated about and started towards the small door. Even from across the room I could see I was in trouble. The door had a cloud lock. If it was locked, and when was anything ever easy, then I couldn't open it. The cloud walking which had allowed me this far wouldn't affect either my tools or my telekinesis, neither of which could interact with the clouds. Is she gonna pick up the dead body and use it to interact with the system? First real meta outtake right there. My trot dropped to a slow walk as I began to realize that I had come all this way, risked so much from so many, and I might be stuck forever in this cold, tacky room. The 3 screens erupted into life. Above me, glaring with an expression of cold and evil rage, was an ebony alicorn, her vast black wings filled with screens to the left and right. On the center monitor, her turquoise, dragon-like eyes stared down at me with utter contempt from behind a helmet forged of bluish metal. "You trespass in the sanctum of Nightmare Moon," she said icily. "I give you this one chance. Leave, as swiftly as your little hooves can carry you." I backpedaled in shock, my hooves stepping into the ribcage of a skeletal pony, causing me to trip and somersault backwards, coming to a rest awkwardly against the rotting corpse of the unknown Pegasus. Nightmare Moon. Or, I quickly suspected, a security system designed to emulate her. Rainbow Dash had formed the shadow bolts. It made sense that she might have drawn on similar iconography when designing the internal security for her ministry's greatest project. I planted my hoofs firmly on the cool floor and glared back at the screens full of Nightmare Moon. I'm not turning back now," I announced. "You cannot continue," Nightmare Moon insisted, "and I will strike you down if you try. Turn back now while I'm still feeling generous enough to give you the chance." And exactly how would I do that? Was she going to drop the shield to let me out? A bar of static crept up the left screen, distorting Nightmare Moon's right wing. It didn't matter. I turned away from the 3 screens, casting my gaze about the room. I couldn't pick a cloud lock, but maybe I didn't have to. Maybe, somewhere in this room, there was a key. "What are you doing?" Nightmare Moon demanded. "Ignoring you," the little pony in my head thought as I began to search the room. The cloud lock probably meant a cloud key. I had to find it while the spell persisted, and I would be able to pick it up in my hooves or teeth. Panels slid back on the frost-encrusted ceiling. Ceiling turrets dropped down threatening, but not yet taking aim. Stop that, the image of Nightmare Moon cried out, insisting. There's no other way inside. Don't waste your time. I couldn't help it. A smile broke across my muzzle. Oh, but there is, I told her. You know how I know? Know how I know? Because it's making you nervous. The image on the right screen flickered with static, then righted itself. Wait, security programs can't get nervous. I turned to face the screens, my eyes growing wide. Last chance, the face of Nightmare Moon warned me, full of regal anger. Leave now. No, I'm not leaving, I told her defiantly. Because the lives of good ponies are at stake. Because the evil attacking the innocent has to be stopped. Because Equestria deserves the sun. I stepped towards the screens, watching as a wave of distortion warped the images of Nightmare Moon. I'm not leaving because this is my destiny. I stomped, staring coldly at the flickering image of the evil Black Alicorn, looking into those dragon-like eyes as if willing my gaze beyond the screens, beyond the facade. I took a deep breath and spat out, and because you are not Nightmare Moon. The screens flickered and the images of Nightmare Moon vanished to be replaced with a much kinder visage. Destiny is what you make it to be, Celestia told me. I told myself this was another layer of the security program. This wasn't actually Celestia. This gentle goddess had transcended death, rose up to the heavens. Even now she was watching over all the ponies of Equestria, hearing our prayers. Not this. This wasn't what I believed. Stop with the games, I spat crossly. Get out, the image of Celestia commanded, spreading feathery white wings across the right and left screens in a stance of royal dominance. This place is not for you. I shook my head. Get out how? However you got in. My jaw dropped. It didn't know? Weren't you paying attention? What sort of crappy security system was this? Spike sent me. Sorry, don't have another dragon in my saddlebags. The Celestia image mouthed Spike's name, looking surprised. You had yourself burned alive? The voice of White Alicorn asked softly. Wide lavender eyes stared at me through the center screen. Besides, wouldn't he just send me... Wait. Slowly, reluctantly, I asked. You are Princess Celestia, aren't you? Yes, my little pony, the majestic image of the White Alicorn said. A line of static started to crawl across the center monitor. And who are... The Alicorn trailed off, seeming to really look at me for the first time. Wait, don't I know you? Know me, I repeated, feeling like I was losing the ground beneath my hooves. Why would you know me? I watch so many ponies, the image of Celestia confessed. In my prison, all I can do is watch and listen, until sometimes I cannot bear to watch anymore. Prison? That... Oh, goddesses, was I actually believing this? That I was speaking to Celestia herself? That the goddess, princess, was somehow trapped here? Why else would she refer to this as a prison? But that meant... But I do remember watching you before, Celestia interrupted my epiphany, her voice taking on a motherly tone, almost gentle, but not without an edge. You are Littlepip, she of the colorful vulgarate... What the heck is that word? Am I right? Of the Eep, Celestia knew me, and for that... I wanted to hide it, but there was simply not enough everything in the universe to bury myself under. The pony on the radio has had good things to say about you, Celestia continued, my embarrassment compounding with her mention of my inflated reputation. Of course she had been hearing everything Homage had said, and all the DJ Pone 3s before her. They had, after all, been tapped into the SPP towers to broadcast, using Twilight Sparkle's emergency broadcast station no less. All I can do is watch and listen. You are not like the ponies who have sought to enter this place before, the horrible things they did in their efforts to get inside. I winced, the little pony in my head cringing in sympathetic heartache as I imagined what it must have been like for Celestia To see an alicorn wearing her sister's bones. I put Luna to rest, I told her quickly, wanting to ease the harmful memory. I burned Luna's bones and slew the monster who desecrated her. My words felt weak and pathetic in my muzzle, but the expression on Celestia's face was of such undeserved gratitude that I found myself bowing before her just to escape it. "Rise, my little pony," Celestia chided softly. "I am no one worth your deference." I glanced up in surprise at her melancholy words, not moving from my position. There are too many dead because of me for any pony to show me such reverence. I would bow to you if I could. I stood up quickly. What? No! I was appalled and, to my surprise, a little cross. What happened wasn't your fault. The war, the megaspells, the horrible things we have done in your absence, none of it is your fault. Celestia merely looked at me sadly. Her perfect voice began to soak with the sound of tears she couldn't really shed. "But it is, my little pony," she insisted. "I chose the site for Luna's school. There were 3 sites equally suitable, but I chose Crescent Moon Canyon because it amused me, because I wanted to see my sister's face when I told her I was sending her students to the moon." And now I could see tears in Celestia's eyes, static, warping the image on the central monitor. I put those children there for a joke. I hadn't imagined. My nerves felt covered in ice. My eyes burned. I felt the heart of a tear trickle down my right cheek as I began to cry for the goddess. "And that's not the end of it," Celestia claimed. "When the zebra struck, Luna and I worked together, holding up the shield, giving all our subjects time to get to their stables, even though the cloud was killing us. We took shifts. At first, each of us holding the shield while the other gathered healing supplies, then while the other just rested. Sacrifice. But my sister," Celestia's voice trembled, "was younger, weaker, and no matter what I did, I couldn't prevent her from dying in my arms." Tears streamed down from her quivering lavender eyes. I held Luna until her body grew cold. "Oh, goddesses! Goddess, Luna, have mercy on your sister." And then, stricken with grief, I flew away. I abandoned dead Kkat, letting the shield fall, unleashing a fatal flood on the poor towns below. Applesnack died, I recalled painfully. In the seconds that followed, he hadn't seen Celestia's flight from the royal castle, but that could be forgiven. He was focused on the horrific wave of pain coming to consume him. As terrible and painful as her confessions were, Celestia was not finished. I was blind with grief, with the loss of my sister. But as I flew over Whitetail Woods, I saw zebra megaspell missiles, 3 of them heading towards Kkat. The zebras were not content to murder Luna. They intended to obliterate the city that had become her grave, to wipe the entire mountain off the map, to utterly erase her. I remember the words of Steelhooves. I heard rumors in the days after the apocalypse that after the shield fell, the zebras launched megaspells to finally obliterate the city. But if that is true, then those missiles never reached their destination. Whitetail Wood. Cage used to call it the most poisoned place in Equestria. Timidly, I heard myself squeak, "What did you do?" "I destroyed them," Celestia said, her sad voice taking on a hard edge. My grief turned to rage, and I tore them apart, reduced them to dust as I flew between them. "Good for you," the little pony in my head said with an angry stomp. The blade of anger evaporated from my voice, leaving only regret. The winds carried the radiation and poison of those weapons across all of Whitetail Wood, covering Equestria's once beautiful forest and poisoning the reservoir, all the way to the edge of Ponyville. As Celestia spoke, my thoughts traveled back to my first minutes outside the stable, to just how sick and poisoned Sweet Apple Acres had been, the very ground making my pit buck click. My rage, Celestia bemoaned, when it left me, I felt like I had been stripped of my flesh, my heart, my soul was raw, and I was afraid. The expression on Celestia's face was unfathomable. I was dying, and I was afraid. I wanted to hug her, to bury my head in her royal white coat and weep for her, for Luna, for everything. I should have let myself die, Celestia said. That way, at least I could have been with Luna. But I didn't. I was selfish. I've lived so long that death, ending, was alien and horrifying to me. So instead, I let my cowardice bring me here. Here, the single Pegasus project. That's not cowardice, I offered earnestly. That's normal. The idea of anything about the goddesses being normal was jarring to me. We all fear death. That's part of being a pony. But the second thought I added, it's part of being alive. Celestia seemed mildly thankful for my effort, and as a reward I have been trapped here, in my prison, my purgatory, listening to the victims of my sins, unable to act, unable to help. She seemed to look past me, her gaze shifting across the bones. I've done what I could to prevent any pony from becoming like me, and to prevent those camped outside from gaining access to this place. I opened my muzzle, tried to say something, to protest, to find some way to counsel her. She listened for a moment before gently cutting me off. Instead, a voice I had heard months ago filled with the winter vestibule. "Hello? Is there any pony out there?" the long-dead stallion asked. His voice was heavy with resignation. He didn't really expect the help I knew he would never receive. "Please, we need help. I was bringing my family to the stable up near Sweet Apple Acres when we were attacked by raiders. Only my son and I survived. We made it to the stable, but it's still sealed up. There is no way inside. My son, he ate one of the apples from those damned apple trees up near the stable, and now he's terribly sick, too sick to move. We've holed up in the cistern near the old memorial. We're running out of food and medical supplies. Please, if any pony hears this, please, help us." Message repeats. I was struck by a ghost of the realization I first had hearing it. The unnamed father had already lost hope, and by the time he made that recording, he was just going through the motions. And Celestia had been hearing that broadcast, reciting the death of a cult from the poisons she had spread across the Whitetail Wood, playing over and over again for who knew how many years, until I came along and shut it down. I broke down crying. Celestia wept with me. "You are not like those camped outside," she repeated, when my resolve to complete my mission overrode my sorrow and I finally began to wipe my tears. I knew she must have meant the Enclave. It struck me as odd that she wouldn't have known who I was when I first appeared. She didn't seem aware of the battle raging just beyond the shield or the purpose of my appearance. All I can do is watch and listen until, sometimes, I cannot bear to watch any more. Her answer should have surprised me. Friendship City. It had been the Equestrian Wasteland's darkest hour. If I had been watching, unable to help, I believe I would have averted my gaze too. It took me a few minutes to fill Celestia in on what she had missed. What did happen to you?" I finally asked, my voice cautious. I tried to brace myself for whatever answers would come. I needed to know, but I didn't think I could bear hearing of even more of my Celestia's pain. "How is it that you are here? Like this?" My first assumption would have been that Celestia had entered the control pod herself, but if she had, wouldn't she have done a long time ago what I intended to do now? And hadn't the Ministry of Awesome Systems confirmed that the central hub was empty? "I came here," Celestia told me. "I knew my body was dying, but I knew of the Crusader mainframes of the chance for continued life they offered. So I came here." She looked askance. Part of me had hoped that in taking control of this place, I would be able to help all my little ponies, that I could still do some good to try to make up for my failures. But when I downloaded myself into the mainframe, I found myself trapped, helpless. I have control over a few security systems, but that is all. I can only listen and watch. Downloaded? My forehooves raised to my muzzle as I gasped. None of that downloaded your brain nonsense, Rainbow Dash had explained to Luna. I had them disconnect all that stuff. I want a living pony wanting Equestria's weather, not some machine that thinks it's a pony. Rainbow Dash, Apple Bloom, I said weakly. Celestia, they disconnected the mental download system from the controls. That was part of the design. I had known this, but I had imagined that they would have removed that part of the Crusader mainframe completely, not left it intact, but severed. Spike had once asked me, have you ever heard the old saying, the portal to hell is opened with the incantation of good intentions? If there was a moral to their story, I guess that would be it. I know that now, Celestia said mournfully. She had made a mistake. A simple, understandable mistake, with numbingly tragic consequences. It was the story of Equestria's fall in miniature. DJ Pon3's words rang in my head. The one great reality of the wasteland. The truth of the matter, every pony has done something they regret. Hold on. A little drink break here. I thought we were going to get little breaks in this, but no, it just keeps going. So while I take that little drink break here, we're over halfway done with this chapter, the last chapter. That is crazy. That is absolutely wild information. I thought Celestia was just gone. No, she's still alive. She's alive and kicking. And Spike's flames teleported Littlepip into the single Pegasus project building or whatever that the Enclave somehow never managed to break into. And I'm guessing all that coldness is why Littlepip is alive. It has to probably be numbing the fire that she feels. The burning. That is rough. Celestia thought she could do something to help, but she's just been trapped. For over 200 years has been trapped. With nothing more than to basically watch reality television and control a few security systems. That is just so sad. That sucks. I really do feel bad for her. That's awful. Well, alright, let's continue. The rational part of my mind reared up. If that was what had happened, then this wasn't really Celestia I was talking to. It was just a program. Just the illusion of memories. Downloading your mind into a Crusader mainframe doesn't actually put you into the computer. It just makes a copy of your brain. The only way that... I thought of Elder Cottage Cheese and his unholy intentions. He had planned to truly live forever by not only turning the Crusader mainframe into a duplicate of his mind, but then transferring his very soul into the machine, using it as a soul jar. My face rose towards Celestia. My eyes opened in terrible realization as Rarity's words once again whispered through my mind. I even tried to have Spike burn it. All that did was send it to Princess Celestia. Princess Celestia had, for a limited time, been in possession of the Black Book. You, I stared aghast. Yes, Celestia confirmed regretfully, not even needing to hear the question. The spells were so easy to learn that I knew them the moment I opened those pages, and how could I have resisted just a look? I felt a black chill. When you live as long as I have, boredom becomes an enemy, she explained. in its own way, as dangerous to me as discord, especially when I was alone. Celestia sighed. In the centuries after I banished Nightmare Moon, I turned to learning everything I could about the mysteries. The mysterious, the secret, and the forbidden. I have learned tidbits of zebra alchemy and dragon magic, those few things which a pony such as myself could possibly perform later. Later, I even built a school to teach the things I had learned which were safe. Dragon magic, was that how she sent scrolls back to Spike? I couldn't help but ask. Yes, she told me with a nostalgic smile. I learned that from a dragon, you know. You now know as Mouse, she continued. The secrets of the Black Book were a temptation that played on centuries of habit. No wonder the shield around the SPP Central Hub was so invulnerable. No wonder it had lasted so long. It was being powered by Celestia's soul. Another thought occurred to me. This was it, then. I was never getting out. Not that I had ever intended or expected to, in the very least. I could leave until the threat of the Enclave was dismantled entirely. It did no good to end the war today, if it just started again tomorrow. Still, the reality of my internal incarceration was like a heavy blanket. Yet I held my head up. I would never see my friends again. I was going to be hated and villainized by the Pegasi, but it was all going to be worth it to bring the sunlight back to Equestria, to stop the Enclave. Hell, it would be worth it just for Silverbell to get to see real rainbows. I stepped towards the small door. My only regret was that I wouldn't be with Homage again, that I wouldn't be able to hold her one last time. I stopped looking up at the screens. Can I see them? I asked. My friends? From in here? Of course, my little pony. My heart leaped, the little pony in my head bouncing about with unexpected anticipation. My first instinct was to ask about Homage, but I had a friend for which I felt a much more pressing concern. Please, Celestia, I begged. Show me Ditsy Doo. Show me what happened to her. I need to know if she's all right. Princess Celestia vanished, her image replaced by scenes of the battle for Philadelphia. Each monitor showed footage recorded by the SPP towers, 2 showing recent events, while the third played in real time. I watched as Ditsy Doo, the golden green light of hope, rose out of the Philadelphia crater and flew up through the clouds, and I watched as she came back, her sonic rad boom clearing the skies over Philadelphia, allowing the rays of Celestia 1 to strike. I watched as she fell, and I cheered when Lionheart caught her. On the central screen, I could see Ditsy Doo, right now standing on the overturned hulk of a chariot, gazing wall-eyed over a sea of scrambling slave ponies, her black board in her teeth. This way to freedom and muffins! Beyond her, a gaping hole had been torn in the wall, the wreckage from the barrier used to bridge the moat of toxic sludge. Lionheart was standing beside the passage to freedom. Near his hooves, a dozen monsters from the sludge moat lay dead, their pink, tainted corpses surrounding a triumphant-looking white field mouse. Thanks, Celestia, I said without thinking. Then blushing, I asked, Show me Zenith? The screens changed. Show me! I don't know, it's just honestly, with that, you just show me what I want to see. And then bam, displayed. The screens changed. I watched my zebra friend infiltrate Philadelphia until she had reached Stern. I saw the fight that began on the rooftop of the Ministry of Morale, and that ended in a gabbled rooftop on the far side of the city. I looked on as right now Zenith lay bleeding and barely conscious under the cover of a cave formed from the rubble as her daughter, the Doctor of Glyphmark, tended to her wounds. In the background, the sky erupted with the light as concentrated sunbeam flamed down from the heavens and detonated an Enclave bombing wagon. If Celestia 1 was working, then that gave me hope for my other friends as well. Could you show me Reggie, please? And Life Bloom? The monitors replayed the sight of God's griffins clearing the sky over Ten Pony Tower, interspersed with glimpses of the Twilight Society. Celestia was somehow able to show me inside the megaspell chamber. The left hoof monitor was showing God and Reggie as they flew towards the roof of Ten Pony Tower, supporting a wounded black wing between them. If I do become arbiter of a new Canterlot Republic, God was telling the wounded griffin, I would be honored to have you as co-counsel. Don't you think you should choose a pony for that? Blackwing suggested. You wouldn't want to give the impression that Equestria is under Griffin control. It took me a moment to realize that they were missing someone. I turned to the other monitors in time to watch the fight begin. I felt a sharp pain as I looked at Butcher and realized she wasn't going to survive. I gasped when Reggie was struck by the poisonous tail and whooped when she shot back up through the clouds with little Gilda. Who would you suggest then? God asked on the left screen as the surviving trio near the rooftop. A pony galloped out onto the roof to greet them. I heard Reggie's voice. Life Bloom? Enough, I said with a wave of my hoof, not needing to see any more. Those who survived the fight would recover, but we had taken losses. I knew we would, but that didn't lessen the hurt. If anything, we had gotten lucky that it wasn't much, much worse. Show me Velvet Remedy. On the central screen, the beautiful charcoal-coated unicorn was singing into a headset as she trotted between wounded Enclave soldiers lined up inside the protective barrier generated by several green alicorns. She had set up a triage for the enemy, helping out every pony wounded in the battle. As I watched, a purple alicorn teleported inside the shield, bearing another fallen soldier. Velvet Remedy interrupted her song once again, rushing to the wounded Pegasi's aid. The side monitors displayed how Velvet Remedy had taken over Broadcast Center. Without a shot fired or a pony wounded, I had never felt more proud, joyous. And yet my knees felt weak, and a nervous sweat broke out over my body as I asked timidly, Celestia, please, show me homage. This time, only one screen lit up with a view of the wasteland. Celestia reappeared on the other two, watching me tenderly. I could see contrails of black smoke in the sky. The camera shifted downward, zooming in on a ridge of rock. Amongst the rocks was a small cave, little more than an indentation that somebody had built ramshackle walls into, and sparse furniture, all scaled for very small ponies. A little sign was nailed to the front, the word clearly painted by a young foal. Rockopolis, no fillies allowed. Through the almost rectangular window, I could see in a very dirty, very haggard homage, her mane and filthy tangled strings curled up amongst a few empty cans of centuries-old tomato paste, hiding. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Then impossibly, homage shifted. She looked up, right up at the camera that was high on a tower so far away that she couldn't possibly see it. Her muzzle opened, and she mouthed the words, I love you, Littlepip. God dang, the frickin' it's a sign, it's meant to be. Their love is eternal. That is the odds of that. Huh, I feel like I'm being watched. Love you, Littlepip. No, I broke down crying again. Homage has been using the towers for a long time, Celestia reminded me. She knows them. And somehow, my Homage, the man who had seen ghosts, found weapons from space, and had encounters with strange ponies who lived in blue boxes, could feel that she was being actively watched. My horn glowed, and I floated up to the monitor, pressing my hooves against it, just trying to be closer. I made it, I told her. I burned alive, but I'm okay. That is very sad. I lowered my hooves, still floating next to the screen, as I drank in the sight of the mare I loved. With that, Celestia informed me I could send you back. A portal of green dragon flame erupted in the room behind me. She could have done that to literally anyone, and yet she threatens them. Like, bro, I'm gonna kill you if you don't get out of here. Turn back the way you came. Lady, I can't get the hell out of this room if I freaking wanted to. She's like, well, you know what? I could let you go. Back to Spike. You could be with her tonight. What? I fell back to the floor with a thud. I couldn't have heard that right. But I had. The green fire behind me, Celestia explained, was like that which she had once used to send messages through Spike. Once I burned to death again, Spike would literally burn me out, alive and whole. Indescribably painful, but efficient. Indescribably painful, but efficient. And a little bit gross. Now that you know how to get here through Dragonfire, you can return to your friends and your loved ones, Celestia offered me. You can go help them with their fight and send someone else in your place tomorrow. You don't have to do this anymore. The image of Homage flickered away, replaced by the sight of Celestia's gentle, caring eyes. You deserve to be happy. I found myself faced with two choices. The small door that led deeper into the SBP, or another death by Dragonfire. This one, able to send me back to my friends. It was almost too much. I can't, I told her, almost wailing. We'll never get this close again. The Enclave is too strong. They'll regroup. And if we don't win today, they won't give us a second chance. The magic of Spike's fire is not short range, Littlepip, Celestia claimed. You don't have to get this close again. Even more meaning that she could have done this at any time for all the other people. I rocked on my hooves. That was true. And I wanted so much to be with Homage again. To be with all my friends. I didn't want the life I had grown to love, despite all the pain and the horror, to end here. That's natural, my little pony echoed. I thought of my talk with Velvet Remedy 2 days ago. How could I ask for somebody else what I wouldn't give myself? Especially, my little pony added, when it means asking them to die for you, even if it might only be temporary. Every pony I know, one of the ones I couldn't trust something like this to. At least, they all deserved to be happy, too, just as much or more than I do. I stared at the monitor, where Homage has whispered her love, and I thought of what Homage would say. I couldn't help but snicker as I realized she would probably ask if I'd been staring at Celestia's flank. Celestia raised an eyebrow as I began to giggle. I giggled because I knew what Homage would say if she could see me now. She wouldn't beg me to stop through that fire. She wouldn't ask me to be with her at the cost of another. Nor would she feel the need to push me to stay. All the things she had to say on that subject she had already said last night. She trusts me to make the right decision. No need to hammer the point. You're laughing. I nodded, failing to stifle a chortle, whatever. Because I know if Homage was here, she'd probably tell me, don't do anything too naughty with the goddess until I can figure out how to make it a threesome. Yikes. Celestia's eyes went wide as I realized what I had just said aloud, and to whom? My face broke into the fiercest blush, but Celestia's expression caused me to collapse in laughter. You have an interesting mare, friend, was all Celestia could manage to say. It took me a moment to recover, wiping tears of an entirely different sort from my eyes. I knew what I had to do. On the other side of the shield, Spike believed he had killed me. I couldn't imagine what he might be feeling, or how he would react when my friends rejoined him. I couldn't leave him like that. Concentrating, I floated up the clipboard, searching for ink. Finding a none, I shouted the sunrise sarsaparilla. bottle with a hoof and used one of the shards of glass to draw blood, ignoring the slight pain. Compared to burning alive, a small cut was nothing, and using my blood to write a message. Hold on, there you go. Yeah, we'll do more. There will be eventually. Dear Spike, I'm alive. I'm inside with Celestia. Thank you. I'm very, very, very sorry. Please, someday forgive me. Littlepip. P.S. It hurt a lot. Without a word, I sent the message back through the portal. Celestia watched in silence. When I was done, she smiled at me. I'm proud of you, Littlepip, but I'm holding the fire open for you. Why? Because I now know where I've seen you. I know now where I've seen you. Twilight's last act was to save you, Celestia informed me. Was it for this? For you to give up your life just a week later? She, who I had worshipped as a goddess, was trying to dissuade me from my mission. Dissuade. Not because I was not worthy, but because I was worth too much. Life is a gift, I told her. I'm not so selfish as to ask any pony else to give theirs up so I don't have to. Life, Celestia remarked sadly, is not always a gift, and death is inevitable. Or at least it should be. Even my sister died. The melancholy in her voice was unbearable. That's the real evil of the Black Book. It changes that. It steals death from you and calls it a gift. It's lying. I've lived so long, alone, watching ponies die. I've seen more than you could know. Please, trust me when I say that the ponies you saved by sacrificing yourself will die soon anyway. I couldn't believe my ears. This was not the Celestia that I worshipped. What are you saying? I'm saying, isn't it better for a gift of a slightly longer life to be given to those who have truly earned it, who deserve it most? Isn't it better to hold on to those you love? As hurtful as it was to hear those words from the one who was supposed to be my gentle and loving goddess, she wasn't without a point. And if the war I allow to continue today should kill Homage tomorrow, I asked, or kill the pony another loves, some pony else's Homage, how could I live with that? And how deserving would I be of another day? How could you even ask? I could hear the undercurrent of pain in Celestia's voice. I suppose I've always played favorites. I thought of her favorite student, and what would Twilight Sparkle do if given the choice? I felt immediately awful for invoking Twilight, realizing how much that must hurt her. What right did I have, particularly after what I had done? Celestia fell silent. I wondered if I had driven her away for whatever quality of away her prison allowed her. When Twilight was younger, she wanted to do what you are doing. She wanted to brave the Everfree Forest alone, to not risk any pony else, Celestia told me. Her friends would not let her. After that, I'm not sure. I'd like to believe that she'd stay with her friends and they would work a way through it together, but the ministries. I felt a flare of protective anger. Was Celestia suggesting my friends had failed me? Or was I reading too much into those words? But her friends, I pointed out, were also willing to step back and allow her to do what she had to do, even if that meant for a moment leaving her vulnerable. And you know what happened, Celestia replied gently. Twilight was always weakest when separated from her friends, and you will be too. I felt the presence of the statuettes in my saddlebags. They were stronger together, better. Oh, goddesses, or goddess, as the case seemed to be. I began to understand not just what Celestia was saying, but why she was saying it. I began to grasp why Celestia had become so different from the goddess whom I prayed to. Celestia, I began cautiously, How long have you been without your friends? How long have you been alone? Again, Celestia was silent. Then after a long and somber pause, she answered, Longer than I've been here. You don't have to be anymore. Littlepip, the eyes of the alicorn on the screens widened. No pony should be alone, Celestia. Not even one like you. Ponies need friends. They need the magic of friendship. Without it, I trailed off, the ponies of Equestria had lost their son in more ways than one, but I could change that. I'm here, and I'm not leaving you. Celestia said nothing. The green flames evaporated. The small door unlocked and opened, revealing a short hallway leading to another door. Inside the hallway, a small alcove held the download device. The metal helmet encrusted with lights and gems was laying next to the longhorn skull of a large, winged pony skeleton. Celestia's skeleton. I took a few steps forward, then stopped, focusing. I wrapped the bones of Celestia in my magic and floated them out into the winter vestibule. Please, Celestia asked, as you did for my sister. It took me a little while to find a way to set the bones on fire, but eventually the fire crackled. Or pyre. I don't know. I realized I would need to do the same for each of the skeletons in here before I settled into the control pod, but I could burn them all together. Celestia's bones deserved the honor of their own fire. Sitting beneath the monitors, I watched the funeral, Celestia watching with me. I was startled when a mechanical whine started somewhere in the central hub, and hidden fans began to suck the smoke from the room, replenishing the winter vestibule with fresh summer air. Between the fire and the air, the enchanted frost began to melt, and the fog on the ground faded away. Finally, I stood up again. It was time. As I walked into the hallway, Celestia opened the final door. The Crusader mainframe of the single Pegasus project reminded me of a tree. The large, central stalk glistened with running lines of mystical energy. Lights blinked in arcane sequences along branches that stretched out from the trunk, connecting to smaller mainframes that lined the walls. The metal oval of the control pod was nestled amongst root-like conglomerations of wires. It struck me simultaneously as being like an egg fallen from a nest and cracked, and a rabbit hole dug into the base of a tree, leading mysterious places. Three other doors marked cardinal points. The writing above them claimed they led to the spring, summer, and autumn vestibules. A stray memory flittered through my head like an errant butterfly. Okay, here's another one, Spike had said, telling us stories of his long-gone friends. The Ministry Mayors. This is the story about Twilight Sparkle's first winter wrap-up. What's winter wrap-up? Calamity had asked just before the shaken-up Sparkle Cola had pressed to him, hosed his face. I chuckled as I remembered his expression. In the aftermath, Spike had explained that normally in Equestria, the changing of the seasons had been accomplished in part of magic. Later, I had heard Rainbow Dash bemoan the need to abandon the war effort once a year to help with winter wrap-up. It is what it is, unfortunately. I'm just gonna have a little drink break here real quickly. Woo! Hopefully that's not too loud. The numbers are smaller than what there actually is. One part of winter wrap-up, the part Applejack had always been in charge of, was planting seeds for the next year's crops. Even that, I realized, was under the single Pegasus project's purview. That was, in fact, part of what the Enclave have hacked into, altering it to fit their needs. Cloud seeding. This was going to be a big responsibility. I lifted the hatch to the control pod, looking inside at what would be my new home. The interior was plush, comfortable, like a cloud, but solid, just in case the operator wasn't a Pegasus, I suspected likely thanks to the oversight of Applebloom. The headset looked an awful lot like the one in the hall, but there were enough differences to distinguish the two. No flashing lights. Quite a few more gems. I concentrated, my magic unfastening my saddlebags and letting them drop to the floor. As I removed my armor, I opened those bags for the last time. I floated out the small number of keepsakes I had brought with me, treasures full of memories and ghosts. Calamity's hat, the Fluttershy orb from Velvet Remedy, the drawing by Silverbell, gifts from my friends. One by one, I set them down in a circle on the interior edge of the control pod. I wanted them close to me while I slept. Little Macintosh, the statuettes of the Ministry Mares. Never did learn what finally happened to Rainbow Dash, the little pony in my head mused, probably for the best. It's good that there are still some mysteries. The ashes of the filly from Friendship City. And finally, orb number 8. That last one I set next to the headgear, the very last thing I would do before closing the hatch and sliding into a controlled coma was to watch it. I knew it would take precious time, but never seeing it was one sacrifice I wasn't willing to make. I wasn't a paragon of my virtue, after all. I looked at Calamity's hat. The memory from our first visit to Spike's cave had reminded me that there was one friend I hadn't looked in on yet. Please, Celestia, if you would, I asked as I trotted back out into the winter vestibule, show me Calamity. The screens changed to pictures of a frantic battle. On one screen, Calamity was dodging pursuit as he tried to plant explosives in the New Hope solar array. On another, he was facing off with an Enclave officer in some sort of storeroom. On the third, Spike flew across the screen, the camera turning to track him. Between two of his claw tips, I could see he was clutching the clipboard. I heard the explosives report of Spitfire's thunder. Calamity was strapped onto Spike's back with rope, as was the Hellhound. Barkin saw my Pegasus friend's wing had been inexpertly wrapped in healing bandages. He overstrained the healing limb, and now it wasn't working at all. Together, Calamity and the Hellhound sharpshooter was sniping incoming missiles before they could reach the dragon. If Littlepip's okay, then let's get Velvet and get out of here, Calamity shouted as he fought to reload. Fall back to y'all know where. Blood dribbled from Spike's destroyed eye. A painful grimace crossed his bloodied snout. The Enclave know me, he growled despondently. They know where I live. Soon as word gets out, they're going to retaliate. Calamity understood the severity of Spike's tone when he said they'll hit the cave with everything they can. My heart skipped a beat. The gardens of Equestria. Yup, Calamity said grimly. That's why we pull everything we got back there. Form a line of defense, as Spike banged to avoid a barrage of plasma fire, each bolt wider than a pony. Calamity scrambled not to drop the anti-machine rifle. All we gotta do is keep him out till Littlepip can clear the clouds. After that, we get Celly 1 as a defense. I felt a surge of panic and fought it back down. It would be hours before they even get back to Spike's cave, longer before the Enclave could regroup. But the sense of urgency that I had somehow allowed to slip and returned in full force. Celestia, I asked, realizing how much there would be to do. Will you help me? Of course, Littlepip. I walked out of the winter vestibule and back into the small hallway. I paused at the alcove with the downloader. They won't understand, I said, realizing it not for the first time. The Pegasi especially. They won't understand why. Not that it mattered. I was trying to do the right thing for every pony. For everyone. The only way I knew how. I heard Scootaloo's voice in my memories. This isn't our Equestria anymore. It's not the happy, safe, pleasant world any of us grew up in. I don't understand how it could have gotten this way. How it could have gone this bad. Some pony needs to figure it out and fix it, and if I have to become the villain of the piece to do that, then I will. I was Scootaloo. At least a little. I'll be able to watch everything, right? I asked. Will I be able to talk to them, or at least send a message? Celestia was quiet a moment then. Not as the system is now, she informed me. Oh, I would have done so long ago. But with the good toaster repair pony, that will be an easy fix. My ears burned a little, but the little pony in my head pranced a glee. I looked at the download device. It was meant to make a copy of a pony's entire mind in a few hours. How quickly then could it make a simple copy of a couple months? I want to send a message, I told Celestia as I wrapped the helmet in my magic, turning the download station on. I want to tell them what really happened. To explain. Even if they never believe me, I owe them all that much. Again I asked, will you help me? Again the answer, of course, my little pony. 2 months. The copy process should only take minutes. Add an hour for editing and adding in a few thoughts. I slipped the helmet onto my head and started up the Arcana Tech device. I felt the odd sense of mental pressure as the device synced up to my brain and experienced an odd taste like that of muffin-flavored cake. I took a deep breath as I tried to figure out just how to begin. Then I began thinking. If I'm going to tell you about the adventure of my life, explain how I got to this place with these people, and why I did what I'm going to do next, I should probably start by explaining a little bit about Pipbucks. Clap, 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 clap in chat. God, we still have 2 more little segments to go. But my God. Oh my God. That was the last chapter. And it goes back to the beginning of the story. That was real sacrifice. That was wild. There you go. Get some claps. Yes. That was wild. Oh my God. Wow. It makes sense now. It all makes sense now. It goes back to the beginning about a story about Pipbucks. Oh my God, dude. That was so good. Ouroboros, everybody. They are in a playlist. I am not. I'm not doing that. Yes, the epilogue. We still got 2 more things to go. Epilogue. Epilogue of forgiveness and fallout. 2 weeks. It's been 2 weeks since the afternoon that wastelanders everywhere have come to call the day of sunshine and rainbows. The day that massive surges of rainbow light and sound, sonic rain booms, burst from 23 of the great towers, clearing away the blanket of clouds that had covered the skies above for all our lives, and the lives of everyone and everything born after the Great War. For me, there's a memory that will forever symbolize that day. I looked up, watching those expanding rings of fantastic rainbow light burst the clouds, sending showers down on the wasteland, and as I turned my face towards the sun for the very first time, I saw how the misty rainfall sparkled, and then I spotted a balefire phoenix. Her coat, a majestic, iridescent emerald and gold dancing and Coverton, whatever that word is, amongst the ephemeral rainbows forming all across the sun-drenched sky. It was the single most beautiful sight I had seen in my long life. Thank you, Littlepip, from all of us. Now, children, as you know, the sonic rainbows also tore most of the remaining Enclave raptors out of the sky. The few that remain have returned to the sides of the Enclave's remaining thunderheads and turned their firepower on the Pegasus ponies who have risen up to throw off the Enclave's tyranny. The war is over, but it would appear that the war was just the prologue to another bloody chapter in equestrian history. Civil war tears apart the sky, and here below, the remnants of Red Eye's armies have divided into war camps, each determined to carve out a swath of the wasteland as their own little empire. The ground soaked in violence and the blood of any pony who challenges them. But this time is different, children, because this time we have hope. Hope that the Equestria of tomorrow will actually be a better place than the Equestria of today, and that we may actually know peace in our children's lifetime. Hope brought to us by our Lightbringer, yes, and more importantly, hope brought to us by ourselves, by our embrace of our noble nature. Over the last few weeks, the actions of so many of you have shone more brilliantly than the sun itself, so much that it's made this old DJ cry, children. Old DJ Pone 3 ain't never been prouder of you. Now listen up, children. Old DJ Pone 3's got a message for all your faithful listeners, and this one's important. The word of the day is forgiveness. We've all suffered at the hooves of the Enclave, and I know just how easy it would be to direct all our hate towards every pony out there with wings. But the Enclave ain't every Pegasus, and even a great many of those in the Enclave weren't keen on what their leaders were doing. Many stood up against them, and many were murdered for it. We need to embrace our Pegasi sisters and brothers, welcome them. Things are going to be hard for them, hell, hard for all of us. We need to show love, tolerance, and acceptance. We need to be the sort of ponies the stable dweller trusted and believed we could be. The sort of ponies you've proven you can be. Also, quote of the day, tolerance and acceptance. Or essentially you can do all of that. Love, tolerance, and acceptance. Same message goes for the alicorns. They ain't the monsters they used to be. They're ponies. Hurt ones at that. Yes, there are several poisonous apples out there. Some of them just don't seem to know any other way, but most of those alicorns are just lost. They're trying to figure out who they are, to reckon their place in this world, not unlike a certain little unicorn who stepped hoof out of a stable less than 3 months ago, and there are some more than just a few who have chosen to side with the heroes of the wasteland. So if you see an alicorn, keep your weapon loaded, but try talking first. You just might find a friend. Remember, children, it's the one great truth of the wasteland. We've all done something that we regret. We all need a little forgiveness, and that's the truth of the matter. God, back then. Yikes. Wild. And with that said, I've got a special treat for all of you faithful listeners. I have here in the studio, Velvet Remedy, here for a rare interview with yours truly. I know I usually farm out interviews to my #1 assistants, but this is a special case, and Homage has been rather busy. But first, some news. The fires of the Everfree Forest have finally died. Bizarrely, a lot of the forest, the trees at least, seems unharmed. Given time, the undergrowth is likely to grow back. However, I have it on good authority that the Applejacks Rangers have taken up a project to convert much of the forest area to farmland, pending negotiations with the Children of the Cathedral, a relatively non-hostile band of Red Eye remnants who have made their home in the wreckage of the Thunderhead Overcast. Also, why does DJ Pone 3 just remind me of, like, Radio New Vegas? I'm just saying, dude, I dig it. In related news, hostilities between the Steel Rangers and their heroic offshoot, the Applejack's Rangers, seem to have ceased, save for a few localized pockets of fighting. Apparently, the threat of genocide from above has helped put their conflict into perspective. Fierce battles continue throughout the ruins of Philadelphia, most notably between Talon mercenaries and the merging Red-Eye remnant warlords. Unless your checklist is things you need to do by the end of the day includes violence and bloody dismemberment, I strongly advise you to avoid Philadelphia for the foreseeable future. If you are amongst those civilians still trapped inside the ruins, seek out the nearest Talon, not engaged in active hostilities. If at all possible, the Griffin will do her or his best to get you out of the war zone. Now, as many of you know from my first return broadcast, all those mysterious towers turned out to be part of a pre-war weather control system called the Single Pegasus Project, and that Littlepip, the mare formerly referred to only as the Stable Dweller and other titles, is currently in an induced coma hooked into that system. Additionally, Celestia herself is bound in mind and soul into the Single Pegasus Project security system. So I guess every pony who believed that Celestia was up there somewhere looking down on us was right. And that brings us to a bit of good news and a bit of bad news. You see, Littlepip was willing to sacrifice everything she had for all of us. Her friends honor that. But they're doing all they can to mitigate the price, because that's what friends do. They help each other best they can. Despite the best of efforts, it doesn't appear control of the Single Pegasus Project, weather system security, and weather control systems can be integrated. Turns out, even if we had the technology, attempting to install it would require a full shutdown and tearing apart several components of the Crusader mainframe, and that ain't an option. The good news, however, is that they've rigged up enhanced communication between the disparate systems. Not only does this mean that Littlepip and Celestia will be able to share time together, but that both will be able to periodically converse with us down here as well. Aww! Aww! That's so cute! Oh, that's wholesome! Oh, that warms my heart! Sunlight and Celestia herself have been returned to the wasteland. Words. They just ain't able to express the magnitude of that. And in further good news, the first message from Littlepip to all of us has been received. Now, it's a bit of a mess due to the way it was mentally transcribed, but the Twilight Society's expert in memory magic, a pony who I will add is a trusted friend, has taken it upon himself to sort and edit the memory dump, and we expect to have that message available for everyone living in the wasteland within another 2 weeks. And before you ask, my friend has assured me that the editing being performed will not diminish the message in any way, that it ain't gonna be a short message by any stretch, but that no pony needs to know about every time Littlepip ate or had a bowel movement. To my friend, I can only say, I applaud your sacrifice. Finally, a bit of personal news. I, your voice in the wasteland, am going away again. Hopefully, it will not be for as long as my last vacation, and it isn't definitely under better circumstances. You see, children, now that the war is over and the sky has opened, I've got a quest of my own to undertake, a role in the good fight that demands my personal attention. I'll report in whenever circumstances allow, but this may be the last bit of news you hear for a little while. Now I hear some of you faithful listeners asking, hey, DJ Pone 3, does that mean Littlepip is up there keeping an eye on us all the time too, like a new benevolent goddess? Well, I can tell you she wouldn't much care for the comparison, and the last thing she wants is to be prayed to. That's not a role she seeks for herself. Plus, I have it on good authority that she'll be getting some long and well-earned rest. On the other hoof, even though I know she ain't that kind of pony, I still hesitate to throw round the old "May lightning strike me if" phrase quite so casually now, and I for one am already building up my stockpile of colorful Littlepip swears. And on that note, I introduce Velvet Remedy. Hello, medical pony. May I call you Velvet? Of course you may. We're going to be traveling together for a while. Familiarity is expected. Yes, as it turns out, faithful listeners, Velvet here will be accompanying me on my little sojourn. whatever that word is, as will her husband, Calamity, hero of the Battle of Dragon Mountain. How is Calamity doing after his surgery? VR. Can I call you VR? No. And he's recovering nicely. The implants are compensating for the permanent muscle damage, and I believe that he will regain his full flying capabilities with sufficient exercise and nagging. Ah yes, the nagging, I suspect, is the most crucial element to recovery. Did I hear you say enhanced communication? Well, that explains it. I thought I heard Homan saying something about the tower's spare parts from Stable 29 and a threesome? Hey, it is my fault the mayor's a perv. Is it my fault? Not touching that one, and you know why. Ha! Anyway, let me first say how joyous it was to hear your broadcast that morning 2 weeks ago. Old DJ Pawn 3 ain't never been so happy to be upstaged. What? You weren't even... Whoa, just a joke. But it's no joke that your voice was a blessed and pretty dark hour. Oh, thank you. I just did what I could. And from what I hear, you got a little quest of your own that you're rearing to take on before we all begin our little adventure. Why don't you tell us about that? Yes, we're going to try to save Fluttershy. Fluttershy was one of Equestria's greatest heroes and eventually became one of the Ministry mayors. The mayor of the Ministry of Peace. She was the gentlest healer and the kindest soul that Equestria has ever known. Yeah, she made mistakes, errors in judgment that played a role in the apocalypse, but her mistakes were born of kindness and a genuine effort to save lives. The portal to hell is opened with the incantation of good intentions, and what she has suffered in the last 2 centuries has been beyond the pale. The punishment has far exceeded any crime. Tragically, a wasteland speciality. Fluttershy sounds like the sort of pony the equestrian wasteland really needs. What happened, and how can she be saved? 2 centuries ago, she was brutally transformed by killing Joke. It may be possible to reverse that cruel magic and save her. For the last week, Zenith has been working on a brew, a modification of an old recipe to relieve that transformations caused by Poison Joke, and it is finally ready. Morning Frost has volunteered to fly us out. I don't want Calamity pulling a sky chariot until he is fully recovered. The fires of the Everfree Forest had been cleansed, the area of Killing Joke, but we're not taking any unnecessary chances. Now, Velvet, I hate to bring this up, but it has been 200 years. What is the chance that this will even work? And even if it does, she might not survive the transformation. She might die of old age the moment she is restored. I know, but Fluttershy deserves our efforts to try, and even in the worst case, she deserves peace. After 200 years of undeserved torment? Sorry. Please give me a moment. Take your time. Thank you, I'm alright. Hey, no problem, this is understandable emotional. You were saying? I was about to say, just in case we've created a recording that we are going to play for her before we attempt this. The recording is from all of us. I believe your assistant Homage took part in making it and helped Littlepip and Celestia add their voices as well. The recording lets Fluttershy know that we love her, and perhaps more importantly, that for the mistakes she made, she is forgiven. We're going to play this for her before we try the brew, and afterwards, if we are not successful in saving her, the recording will be integrated into a gravestone marker set to play once a week at sunrise for the next 10 years. That's kinda beautiful. Of course, I really hope that isn't necessary. Again, thank you. No VR for all you've done and all you're going to do. From all of us in the Equestrian Wasteland, thank you. Everyone deserves thanks. We all did our part. And if I may ask, how are you doing in the wake of it all? I know that since your return, you've seemed a little melancholy. Really? Well, a lot happened to me, to you, to Equestria. Can't go through all that and come out the same pony, but that's just life. Life always changes. And I'm afraid that's all we have today. Faithful listeners, old DJ Pone 3 got some packing to do, and I need to program a good week of 3 of music before I go. One final announcement. Earlier, I was able to spend some time with Velvet here in the recording studio, and starting today, Velvet Remedy's Equestrian Anthem will be part of our musical rotation. Knew you'd enjoy hearing that. But for now, I leave you with this song. An old favorite. I dedicated this one to Strawberry Lemonade. That's my girl. That's my girl. Strawberry Lemonade. Yeah. And every other pony who gave their lives. No. No. Strawberry. Oh. R.I.P. Strawberry. You were a real one. And every other pony who gave their lives at the Battle of Dragon Mountain, you stood fast, defending valiantly without even knowing what you were dying to protect, only trusting that your sacrifice was for the good of all Equestria. Your bravery and loyalty are unparalleled, and I promise you this, you didn't die in vain. Someday very soon as my little quest is complete, everyone will understand your sacrifice, and history will remember your names with reverence. Oh. I need a medic bag. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. As soon as I read this, I almost shed a few tears. That freaking sucks. Like, if Littlepip died at the end of the last chapter, I felt really nothing. And, like, I thought she was dead. I didn't even consider she was gonna be teleported. But reading Strawberry Lemonade is dead is the most heartbreaking thing next to Steel Hooves in this whole series. It hurts. My girl, rest in peace. Thanks for listening, children. I want to calm the storm, but the war is in your eyes. How can I shield you from the horror and the lies? When all that once held meaning is shattered, ruined, bleeding, and the whispers in the darkness tell me we won't survive, all things will end in time. This coming storm won't linger. Why should we live as if there's nothing more? So hold me 'neath the thunderclouds, my heart held in your hooves. Our love will keep the monsters from our door, for I know tomorrow will be a better day. Yes, I believe tomorrow can be a better day. God, dude, that's freaking rough. Oh my god. Oh, rest in peace, Strawberry. Oh god. Ah. Oh god. Oh my god. I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I'm ready to read the afterword 10 years later. God, I can't wait to read something about Velvet and Calamity's children. I already know that's going to be in here. It's going to be a guarantee. Let's see. How long is this? Oh, shoot. I can't even... Oh, never mind. I thought I couldn't even see the chapters anymore. Oh, this is longer than the last one. Hot diggity dog. Man, that's rough. So, is Littlepip bound to die in that machine? Is Littlepip seriously bound to die in that machine with Celestia there? Just like as she found Celestia, pretty much. I'm guessing. I'm just asking for those who have read this before. God, that's rough, dude. Afterward, 10 years later, aka the number of years it would take that tape would play for Fluttershy. Once upon a time in the magical land of Equestria. 10 years later. Then I began thinking, she said softly, reading the very last lines of the book. They were also the first lines, although she wasn't sure if any of her listeners had noticed. The story had come full circle. These were the moments she lived for, just spending time with her children, seeing their eager, attentive faces as she read to them. The reading room was like an island of peace. No worries, no pressures, no pony seeking her advice or counsel. She had never been comfortable in a position of leadership, but the ponies outside had put her on a pedestal. She hated the spotlight, and she knew she hadn't earned the trust they put in her. The reading room was one of her favorite retreats. If I'm going to tell you about the adventure of my life, explain how I got to this place with these people, and why I did what I'm going to do next, I should probably start by explaining a little bit about Pip-Bucks. Oh my god, no. She gently closed the book, drinking in the tranquility of the ending. Yes, these were the moments she lived for, the peace and quiet before. What? Whined the little apricot Pegasus sitting in the center of the other foals. That's it? It can't be it can't end there. That's a lame way to end the story. Now Thunder Rush, she began. Rush was Tracker and Amidst's filly, and had inherited her father's disposition. Okay. I want action, Thunder Rush interrupted, and I want Rainbow Dash. A timid yellow unicorn offered. I kinda like the ending. Rush rolled her eyes at her playmate. You would. Well, if it was tranquil while it lasted. Now, children, it's a story, right? The yellow unicorn flower asked. Even as she nodded in response, the filly, Thunder Rush, promptly disagreed. Of course not. It's obviously just a fairy tale. No pony could survive getting shot that much. The filly rolled her eyes again with exaggerated exasperation. And come on, you don't really believe there were that many monsters in Equestria, do you? Hold on. If they're reading a frickin' book, does that mean whoever is reading this to children read all of that crud that should not be said to children? Oh my god. Of course not. It's obviously just a fairy tale. Nobody could survive against that. Oh, but there were, she responded, hating to interrupt. I was there. The apricot Pegasus just crossed her forelegs and sat down with a humph. One of the colts in the back, a brown and white spotted foal, piped up. Were you really a tree? Fluttershy. Fluttershy. She took a deep breath, fortifying herself to face the question that always came after this one. Yes, Cliff, it's true. She heard curiosity in Flower's voice as the filly asked, what was it like to be a tree? And there it was, the question. I don't want to talk about it, Fluttershy said, the words feeling rehearsed. There were things she couldn't think about too much, and her time as a tree was high on her list of forbidden thoughts. Now why don't you all go out and play, she suggested. Most of the colts and fillies didn't need to be told twice. The far door swung open, letting in a dazzling blast of sunlight. A miniature stampede left the reading room, almost vacant in seconds. She blinked, realizing that the little Cliff had stayed behind. The colt galloped up to her on his tiny hooves and threw his forelegs around her. She fought back the urge to jump away and hide. You're the best storyteller, Miss Fluttershy, he said happily. Thank you for the story. Then the colt, too, was drawn by the pull of the midday sun and scampered off to join his friends. Fluttershy stood in place for a moment, staring out the open doors at the mission, and at Junction Town beyond these ponies. They called themselves the followers of the apocalypse. They knew of her past, her great mistakes, but they neither hid from the truth nor hated her for it. Instead, they embraced it as a lesson, and still, astoundingly looked to her with reverence she found uncomfortable. Still, if she was going to be given a position of authority, she was going to use it. She'd spent 200 years unable to do anything to help anyone. No more. She just had to do better this time. And this time, she was going to stay close to her friends so that they could help her. She spotted the followers' leader, Velvet Remedy. The charcoal-coated unicorn looked her way, smiling. She lifted a forehoof and waved. Fluttershy waved timidly back, her eyes catching the ornate golden Pip-Buck encrusted with the nightingale-shaped gemstone on Velvet Remedy's foreleg. She remembered when that had been a necklace. Her necklace. She found herself smiling, happy it had found a new bearer, although it had taken her a while to grasp the somewhat abrasive mare as a beacon of kindness. She wasn't surprised that the element had taken a new form. After all, before it was a necklace, it had been a heavy round rock, and the book did help explain why the elements chose this new appearance. I still hate Velvet Remedy. I'm just saying. I don't like her. She is not deserving. No matter all that crud she is, always being, I want to heal you, crud. That doesn't make up for her attitudes. The way she acts and crud. No. The Book of Littlepip. Wait. Fluttershy picked up the book in her mouth and walked over to the bookshelf. The Book of Littlepip was a good book, she thought, despite some of the darker parts that she had to skim over when reading it to the kids. The book had helped her understand things, answered many questions. Zenith's potion had reversed the curse of the killing joke, restoring her physically to how she had been before it touched her, but her mind... I still think Fluttershy would be the better candidate between her and, Velvet. It had taken years for her to recover, and she had only been able to find herself again, to put herself back together, thanks to the constant attention and help of her friends, both her new friends and her old ones. Velvet Remedy had been right. The little statues of her friends had helped her put herself back together. Without them, she probably would have remained insane forever. The statuettes of her friends were the second set like that she had been given in her life. The first was from Rarity. The ones she had now were from Velvet Remedy. With them, she could weather the loss of her friends, and it felt sometimes like they were still right there with her. Sometimes in her sleep, they would stand by her against the monsters that lurked in her head. She hadn't understood how or why until Velvet Remedy had given her the Book of Littlepip. Now, thanks to the book, she knew. It was, however, rather disconcerting to know that there were little statuettes of her out there somewhere, radiating the essence of her soul. The statuettes were in her saddle boxes. She took them wherever she went, taking them out only to put them on the mantel above her bed at night before she slept. With Angel. The eternally petrified form of the dearest pet and longest friend watched over her each night, guarding her. It was maybe macabre, maybe somewhat unhealthy, but she slept better with him there. He kept the nightmares away. As she slid the book back into its place on the bookshelf, she again thought that yes, it was a good book, deeply painful at times, but it was nice to feel like she knew Littlepip. So many of her new friends did, and despite some of her bad times, she seemed like such a good pony. Fluttershy had tried to talk to Littlepip once, but even being in one of the tower stations made her very uncomfortable. The single Pegasus project, she had to admit, freaked her out. Littlepip had called it peaceful, but Fluttershy had panic attacks at the mere thought of the place, of being trapped, unable to move, watching helplessly. She felt her heart racing and shoved the memory away. That place was on her list of things not to think about too much. Sometimes her mind was like a minefield. She had to be careful where she stepped. Still, she had recovered. Mostly, it had taken years, yes. She smiled a little, this sort of smile you could only manage looking back on something from a great distance. Her well-intentioned friends had swiftly taken her to Spike's cave, thinking it would help her to be with someone she knew. 200 years as a tree had done nothing to dampen her phobia of dragons. Of course, she hadn't recognized him. He'd grown up. And true, she'd seen him grown up once before, but that was an unnatural and temporary growth, not like the real thing. He looked completely different. He had wings for one thing. I'm sorry I scared you, she remembered Spike saying one day after she'd finally been able to more than squeak and cower in response. It was the eye patch, wasn't it? Damn it, I wasn't going for jaunty, but I think it just makes me look like a raider. It had not been the eye patch. If anything, the eye patch was nice. Made him look dapper, she told him so. Fluttershy lowered her nose and nudged the book fully into place. Yes, she thought, for a third time, it was a good book. Sometimes, though, she thought it had a bad title. In her mind, it was more than just the story of a single mare. It was a story of Equestria, The Equestria that had been the equestrian wasteland that is, and the hopes for the new Equestria that was beginning to bloom. Maybe the story should have Equestria in its name, she asked herself. More than that, it was the story of the birth of the fledgling forces of good in the equestrian wasteland, the new Kkat Republic. Yeah! Get 'em, boys! That's my news! These are my people! The Applejack's Rangers, even the followers of the Apocalypse, had their origins in this story. And she shouldn't forget the Twilight Society, whose megaspell had turned them into a superpower in the wasteland. They were good and helpful ponies too. Mostly. Usually. Fluttershy crossed the reading room and stepped out into the pure sunlight that poured down on Junction Town. She blinked, adjusting to the brightness as she felt the warmth of the sun penetrate her feathers and coat. Ahead and to the left, Velvet Remedy was talking to some of the medical ponies near the clinic. To her right, the laughter of the playing children tickled the air. Straight ahead, at the far wall of the mission, she spotted Palette. Did I pronounce that right? Palette? Paletta? I don't know. And her apprentice, Silver Bell. The older mare was guiding the adolescent unicorn as she used her magic put the finishing touches on a stained glass window. Fluttershy guessed the window was for the new Canterlot Castle. She closed her eyes, drawing in a deep breath. The sense of dust and lavender trees mixed with a hint of rosewood and cinnamon from Brandy's cookhouse. "Oh, smell that air," she said softly to her friends in her saddle boxes. It was the smell of everything being good in the world. She turned to watch the children. Thunder Rush's little brother was pestering the apricot Pegasus. She tilted her ears to catch the conversation. "I can name all the presidents of the new Canted Lots Republic," the little one boasted. "So cute, he made Fluttershy snicker." "Poofed," Rush said, blowing her side leg sibling off. Why did I say side leg? "That's easy. There's only been 2. Try something harder." The tiny colt tried again. I can name all the princesses of old Equestria." Equally easy isn't harder." Fluttershy sighed, shaking her head, and took a step. She eeped as a young voice cried out, "Hey, Fluttershy!" Turning, she saw the pink alicorn filly fly up unsteadily. Hold on just a second. Hold on just a second. Bear with me. Bear with me. Remind you of anybody? Does this remind you of anyone? This is what I thought of immediately. I know it's unrelated, but this is what I thought about instantly. This is... I know it's only like a phase for them, but still, it's literally the first thought that came to my head. There she saw a pink alicorn filly fly up unsteadily, her face wide and smiling. "Oh, hello, surprise." That's just what that little sentence reminded me of. Fluttershy greeted her. Surprise was the 3rd alicorn to be successfully birthed and the first alicorn to have coat that wasn't blue, green, or purple. "Look what I can do," the alicorn filly beamed happily. Her little face scrunched in concentration, her horn flickered and began to glow. Small sparks erupting from its tip, a blob of magical energy formed above the little alicorn. It melted down around her, forming a magical shield. The fragile magical sphere lasted only a moment before popping like a soap bubble. The alicorn's eyes looked up with glee. Oh, that's a very good surprise, Fluttershy cooed. You're getting ever so much better. Your parents must be so proud. Still, she couldn't help but suppress an involuntary shudder, her eyes drifting towards the mountains and towards Glyphmark. She knew better than to worry. Zenith, of all zebras, wouldn't allow them to be anything but extra cautious. Still, the brew they created to turn alicorns male. This is so freaking cursed. The potion that would allow them to brew required extract of killing joke as an ingredient, and that meant the angels were cultivating it over there. No, no, no. Stop thinking about things on the list. You know it's not healthy. Surprise squeaked in delight and fluttered away, seeking another adult to show off to. Fluttershy slowly walked down the cobblestone street that wove through the mission. She passed Brandy trotting the other way, pulling a cart of vegetables from the gardens. She exchanged greetings with the young cook, feeling fleetingly disappointed that she wouldn't get to taste the soup and salad being planned for tonight. But she wasn't going to be here. The Equestrian wasteland was producing enough food now for its population to begin to prosper, ponies and non-ponies alike. 3 years ago, Littlepip had cleared the last of the cloud current, her continued habitation in the Celestia hub being as much out of dedication to her promise as it was for psychological and physiological concerns. The former she empathized with all too well. The latter regarded the small mare's development of a constitutional weakness. Her multiple exposures to Pink Cloud and broadcasters have taken their toll. Plus, while not constantly minded, the weather still needed to be regulated so that the farms could run at maximum production, and sadly, it would probably be generations before the rest of Equestria was willing to trust the weather to the Pegasi again. Yes, food was no longer a necessity that ponies needed to struggle or bleed for. The new Canterlot Republic, God bless their souls, ensured that the bounty was distributed generously to all, and the Talons kept the farms and caravans safe from gangs and other marauders who would attempt to seize control. Rather, the national concern had turned once again to power. The gardens of Equestria had given back their farmlands, but had stripped them of the radioactive materials necessary to run Red Eye's engines. For now, most of the energy used by the NCR was generated from devices drawing on star batteries, a donation from Calamity, she had been told. But those resources were finite and heavily strained. The needs of the nation would soon far exceed the limited power they could produce. Fluttershy cringed at the notion that Equestria's power might soon become dependent on irradiated rocks and other materials that could only be found in foreign lands. She'd seen the land she loved go down that road before. It did not end well. Getting Aqua Cura was bad enough. Several field mice scampered across the street. Fluttershy flapped her wings, lifting her hooves off the cobblestone, giving them space to pass. An iridescent bird of golden and emerald plumage shot down out of the sky, snatching one of them up. The balefire phoenix shot into the air, lifting up 10 yards, and dropped her prey onto the stones below, the fall breaking the little mouse's back. Oh, hello, Pyrelite, Fluttershy squeaked as Pyrelite dropped onto her prey and started to eat. That sucks. Yikes. For a moment, she had almost called the balefire phoenix Philomena, but Pyrelite wasn't the same bird as the one that had been Princess Celestia's pet. At least, she was pretty sure they weren't the same bird, but the similarities were striking enough that Fluttershy was sure they were from a common family. Cousins, maybe even sisters. Pyrelite looked up at Fluttershy, mouse intestines dangling from her beak, and squawked pleasantly. Fluttershy bit back the urge to grimace, smiling approvingly at the predator instead. She had been with Velvet Remedy through Pyrelite's last 2 natural renewal cycles, the first time helping the unicorn accept the seemingly horrible decline of her pet's health. See, this is why Fluttershy would be a lot better than Velvet Remedy. Fluttershy bit back the urge to grimace, smiling approvingly. That alone just makes Fluttershy, in my eyes, a lot better than Velvet. She doesn't like it. But she's like, oh, lovely. That it is what it is. Fluttershy flew past, landing a few yards ahead and continuing on her way. Ahead, she noticed that Pallet and Silverbell had paused in their work to watch Surprise show them her shield bubble. A chime sounded crystalline and clear, ringing across the mission. She perked up, looking to the sky above the gate. Other ponies trotted about her, headed to see Silverbell, galloped past her, her mentor trotting more leisurely behind. Velvet Remedy joined her side. Surprise followed the promise that there were more adults to show off to. One of the caravans was home. Even before she recognized the silhouette, the glints of metal under his wing and on his foreleg told Fluttershy that it was Calamity who had come home. It was good to see him again, and not just because he was going to be her ride this afternoon. She'd always been a weak flyer, even in her youth. She wasn't young anymore. The only pink in her mane now was from the streaks Silverbell had put in it while practicing cosmetic spells. Fluttershy felt confident in flying across Junction Town, maybe even to where they were building the new castle, but not all the way to Buckland Cross. The heavy gate door squealed, pulled open by ponies, oh my god, I cannot speak anymore, on pedal machines made from the old griffin chasers as Calamity landed inside the caravan he guarded, began through the doors. She trotted forward, her eyes moving to each pony, counting manes. Oh my god, I can't speak. She breathed a sigh of relief. She didn't realize she was holding in, as every pony was accounted for. She supposed she'd been a little worried. The trip to Thunderfall City and back wasn't as dangerous as it used to be, but it was good to see them back and in one piece. Aw, Silverbell pouted. I was hoping it would be Mom and Dad. Dad? Ditsy Doo's caravan was due back today as well. She realized, and from how much more treacherous, it was for the ghouls of Equestria. Their bodies could not heal without radiation, and after the gardens of Equestria had been activated, there was no radiation in Equestria anymore. Every week, brave caravans like Ditsy Doo's were making the trek beyond Equestria's borders to the Rad Pits and the Blight and neighboring lands, filling barrels with the irradiated water that the ghouls at home needed to survive. Ditsy Doo was, however, the only one to have decided to brand her water deliveries. Absolutely everything was Equestria's source for Aqua Cura, free on request with any size of purchase, no matter how small. Dirty water. Caravans were all too often targets of bandits and other awful ponies. She understood Silverbell's anxiety. The caravan was already crowded by ponies when she reached it. Some were helping unload, most were just eager to hear about the trip. On our way there, we ran into raiders out near Hope. Calamity was telling Velvet Remedy, shaking his head sadly. They hit the outpost there. Weren't much left of it when we reached it. Raiders, Velvet gasped. But we haven't seen those in years. And you sure it wasn't one of the gangs? Gangs don't do to ponies what these monsters did, Calamity snorted, drawing down his silver cow pony hat. But don't worry, they won't be doing nothing to any pony ever again. Fluttershy watched as the two married ponies began to sketch out plans to send a group out to properly tend to the dead at the Hope outpost. I'm off with Shot to Buckland Cross this evening. Might want to get some old the Talon boys to provide cover, Calamity suggested finally. I got 'em all, I'm sure of it, but better play it safe, just in case. The rust-coated cyber pony turned to her. I'll be ready to go in an hour, if y'all are ready. Oh yes, thank you, if that's okay with you, she paused, then asked. Do you think it will be dangerous? Shucks no, Calamity smiled. We'll likely get a few rogue wins, but the junction town of Buckland Cross is one of the safest routes in all of Equestria. Well, now that the Bloodwing mating season had passed, at least. Rogue wins? It's Homage's birthday, so she's up in the Celestia hub with Littlepip, Calamity informed her. I hear they're spending the whole day in the autumn vestibule. Oh, Fluttershy squeaked. How romantic. Calamity turned to his wife with a smirk. Homage wanted me to remind you that this is the last birthday she's got before she's officially old and decrepit. He playfully poked Velvet Remedy with the hoof as she scowled and pouted. Fluttershy's eyes were drawn to the golden pitbuck on his foreleg, the two jewels embedded in it. taking the shapes of a hammer and a screwdriver. What's decrepit? Surprise pipped up. Looked at the adults curiously. In this case, Pallet answered, lowering her head to mock whisper to the little pink alicorn, it means the same age Velvet was when she left her stable. Velvet Remedy tossed her mane back and nickered indignantly. Indignantly, my bad. Dusk was settling over Equestria. The dipping sun glowed between the skeletal monuments of Manhattan's ruined skyscrapers. Dingy light and fading shadows stretched across Fetlock. The wind sent ripples across the lake and through the lush hills of grass. She stood in the back of the sky chariot, staring down as Fetlock passed below. She could see the lights of the settlement built around the Applejack's Ranger stronghold, a bastion of life in a sea of wreckage. Did you see Ponyville? She asked suddenly. Yup, Calamity answered as he flew, pulling the chariot behind him. They seem to be doing all right, for hellhounds. Not even raiders are stupid enough to wander near Ponyville. 10 years ago, a megaspell destroyed the hellhound's home in Splendid Valley. A few dozen of the survivors had surfaced in the ruins of the old town that had once been her home. The home of her friends. Now it was home to maybe a score of hellhound families. As Calamity guided the sky chariot, oh god no, I saw that last bold text on the bottom when I scrolled down. I don't want to know what it is, but it wasn't good. Fluttershy knew where they were going. Part of her mind insisted on envisioning this place as it once was. She and her friends had once gone golfing on these very hills. Back before the war was even a whisper. She remembered Angel had gotten bored and started gnawing on the canopy of their golf cart until she cajoled him to stop. I don't know how to pronounce. But this place wasn't a golf course anymore. Calamity brought the sky chariot down on the wind-stroked grass and unhitched himself. Fluttershy spread her wings, dipping her head to pick up the bundles of flowers that had accompanied her for this much of the journey. The two Pegasi approached the 5 tombstones. Actually, that makes sense. The two Pegasi approached the 5 tombstones. Fluttershy dropped the flowers at her hooves, letting Calamity pick up several of them to place at the gravestone of Elder Steelhoof's Apple Snack. She scooped up the others and began reverently placing them at each of the other 4 graves, which fanned out behind that first one as Calamity took a few minutes of quiet with his departed friend. Bro, y'all better be giving my girl Strawberry Lemonade the same amount of love as Steelhooves. A soft pang filled her heart as Fluttershy wished she had found this time to know Apple Snack better. She stopped at the gravestone nearest to Apple Snack's, reading the inscription. Here rests Paladin Strawberry Lemonade. Oh, 7. Brave, loyal, and true, she gave her life that Equestria may blossom once again. God dang. You're god dang right. You're god dang right. Strawberry Lemonade did all that. Strawberry Lemonade is worthy of Star Paladin Lemonade, alright? Oh, that's sad, but I'm glad they get their own, they get their own highlight. You know? Oh, 7. She gave her life that Equestria may blossom once again. A real trooper, a mad legend. The other 3 markers had similar epitaphs. The wind began to pick up, tugging at her silvered mane with the streaks of pink. She planted the last of the flowers and turned back to Calamity. The stallion was staring upwards and towards the east. She followed the gaze, spotting the gaunt, flying forms of 2 ghoul Pegasi pulling a water cart, leading the other water wagons as the caravan flew towards Junction Town. She knew one of those lead ghouls would have a golden pitbuck on her foreleg with 7 diamonds arranged like bubbles. Ditzy-Doo, the bearer of laughter. Who ever could have imagined? It warmed her heart that her old friend had found love in the equestrian wasteland. If any pony in Equestria deserved happiness, Fluttershy thought it was her. And you know what? That's valid. I agree with Fluttershy. Ditzy-Doo deserved it after all the crud she's gone through. As she watched them pass, she believed she saw the pale stallion beside Ditzy-Doo glance at his love, the Canterlot's ghoul's normal grimace fading into a look of silent adoration. He caught her, his little falling star. Oh, it's so cute and adorable. Oh, it's so adorable. Oh, I love it. Oh, I love it. Oh, that's so wholesome. Little falling star. Oh, that's so sweet. That brought them together. A strange thought crossed her mind as she mused that Ditsy Doo and Lionheart reminded her just a little of Applejack and Apple Snack. As if reading her thoughts a very disturbing notion, Calamity stepped next to her, expressing, I ain't normally the religious type, but I've seen enough to know souls exist. So part of me likes to imagine that somewhere up there, Steelhooves and his gal are smiling down on those two. Fluttershy nodded quietly. I imagine Fluttershy is just going through so much trauma after all this crud. Like, yeah, I agree. I've been turned into a freaking tree. I know what it's like. I know what I can wish for, you know. I've been wishing for a long time, Calamity. The winds continued to blow, making the trees creak and the water of the lake lap at the shore. Sunset poured out beautiful palette across Equestria, painting the sky in oranges and purples, blues and golds. Sunlight glinted off the broken windows of the dead Manhattan skyscrapers, looking like a scattering of jewels, and shimmered on the river that followed around Buckland Cross. The butter-yellow Pegasus stretched her wings, standing on the edge of the fortress, her eyes looking out over the river, watching the slowly gliding boats, then lifting beyond. She could see Gummy's home from here. Like Ditsy Doo, another strand of the past that persisted in the present, tugging at her heart, painful but still precious, like anchors that kept her from blowing away in the wind. She glanced downward, seeing the black scar of the Arbu prison. Calamity was down there somewhere, visiting on a pony he had described as an old friend who looks a lot like me. It saddened her that there was still a need for such places in Equestria, but not all ponies in the wasteland were willing to embrace their better virtues, to be good ponies. Every pony she still believed had goodness inside them, but she had learned the hardest possible way that you couldn't assume ponies would do the right thing, which made those who did all the more wonderful and precious. She felt the presence of the hellhound as he came up behind her. The old cyberhound crouched down next to her, his cyber leg giving a metallic ween. At last, the aging albino spoke. You ready for this? Fluttershy nodded. She would not allow the new age of Equestria to be born out of genocide. The hellhounds were on their precipice of extinction, and it was largely the fault of ponies. Wanted or not, warranted or not, she had been once again put in a position where her words carried weight, and as much as she hated being looked to as a leader, she wasn't going to shy away, not after everything. This is something she must do. She must. She must. The Applejack's Rangers weren't going to be happy about it, but she would convince them the Hellhound Sanctuary was the right thing to do. Oh, that's so wholesome. See, more reason why doing more than healing people is the element of kindness, all right? Velvet Remedy might have threw a couple band-aids on a couple people who are dying, but that's nothing compared to Fluttershy's actual caring, good-hearted nature. Fluttershy actually freaking cares. Like, a lot more than freaking Velvet does. The Hellhound Sanctuary was the right thing. The elderly albino Hellhound got back up as she turned around and followed her as she marched towards the council hall. A stiff wind cut through the feathers, chilling her. The sun began to stink beneath the waves. Sink beneath the waves, not stink. The sun doesn't stink. Has anyone smelt the sun before? I haven't. I don't know if it smells bad. Oh, God. Toward the council hall, a stiff wind cut through her feathers, chilling her. The sun began to sink beneath the waves. Fluttershy took a deep breath. The day was almost over, and it had been a day without gunshots, a peaceful day, a better one. In a world filled with misery and uncertainty, it is a great comfort to know that, in the end, there is a light in darkness. Fallout Equestria. Bravo! Bravo, Kkat! Well done! Well done! Well done, Kkat, for creating that absolutely wild story, everybody. Absolutely wild. That was nuts. That's a good question. I don't know. Gosh, dude. To address the fallen heroes that mattered to me the most. Steel Hooves. Cage. Cage was a goat. R.I.P. Man died literally for no reason. And then, of course, last but not least, Strawberry Lemonade. 07! 07 to the fallen! You will be missed! God, dude. I wanted to cry for some parts of this, but I didn't. Nothing will hurt as hard as a funeral service. A service is the hardest thing to try to get through in a reading, I will say. Because just reading them, yeah, they visited so-and-so's grave, and it was sad and things, but, like, nothing will compare to Steelhoof's funeral service. Nothing will compare. I'm sorry, but you have... If they all had their own respective, like, funeral service, I would probably cry for each one of them. And unfortunately, I don't have it in me to shed tears for my girl Strawberry Lemonade. God bless her soul. What a champ. The best of Applejack's Rangers. Oh, the lone survivor too, if you think about it. The incident. God. Honestly, someday I'm thinking we'll probably do a stream where we just look at Fallout Equestria videos. Animations and whatnot, junk like that. We'll do a stream, and that'll be after this one. And then I think we'll finally be done with this series. I said I was probably going to do an audiobook version of this, but I don't think I can. It takes heart. It takes real energy to do something like that. I thought it was going to be a simple cakewalk, but after reading this whole thing, I think this is just going to have to do. We'll see what the future holds. We don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen, but this was something special. All things considered, I haven't read a book, minus textbooks, which hardly count, an entertainment book, in so long, since high school. And this was worth it. This was nice. I absolutely enjoyed that. That was beautiful. We did it, everybody. We freaking did it. I know a lot of you, several of you here, have been here from the beginning. And that, I appreciate that. Even if you folks, some of you didn't say much. Yeah, if we did continue this series, Pink Eyes would be the next, because that one's a lot shorter. It will be a lot more doable. We could finish that one out in a week, honestly. But, yeah, dude. So I think we should probably do a little recap of our story so far, right? Our journey that our characters went on. Little summary, I guess. Bad summary, because, God, it's going to be shot full of holes after I'm done with it. So it all started back in the vault of Stable 2, underneath Apple Acres. Velvet Remedy had gotten hold of a signal, a code, that opened the stable doors after giving her Pip-Buck to Littlepip to take off to get it fixed or something. That way, Velvet Remedy could escape scot-free. I need a drink real quick. And then Littlepip wanted to bring her back. I can't remember the reason why, if it was to be a hero or something. And as they explained, it was to track her pit buck. That's why she got rid of it, so she couldn't get caught and brought back. And so, just bear with me here. I still have to think about everything that's happened. It's a lot. God, I'm actually quite jealous. Every single one of these things Kkat did. Oh my god. Now there's like a real bad dry spot. Oh, it sucks so bad. It hurts. Every chapter was done very flawlessly. It done excellently. Minus the mistakes, the typos, and crud, which I can forgive. This story's over 10 years old, for crying out loud, folks. So, it gets a pass. It gets a freebie on that front. I don't care about grammar mistakes too badly, really at all. But anyway, so Littlepip goes out into the wasteland. I believe it was then they meet the Watcher Sprite Bot, which tells her to go to Ponyville and to find a book. Or something about, I believe the book was How to Make Friends or something. Or lockpicking, one or the other. Oh yeah, I know. This is over 600,000 words. I expect slip-ups. What I've noticed as I read this, the typos and mistakes actually became more and more less common, actually. What I've noticed as, anyway. And then there was a lot more, like, stuff to explain who was talking, what they were doing and stuff. Emotes, I guess you can say. And that made it a lot easier to continue through. I'm not saying it was like bad or hard to do or anything, but it built. The story got more and more built as it continued, and I appreciate that. That was good. That's good. It's good to develop things. Now this could just be like talking nonsense here, really. Honestly, at this point, the stream's essentially over, but I'm just gonna keep going on. So then, Littlepip kills the raiders, finds a zombie ghoul, which turns out to be Ditsy Doo, frees them, kills the raiders. Oh, no, actually, I think that might have happened after the first night. Because I remember there was a time with a sniper outside. World building, exactly. There was a sniper outside. She was kind of left alone. But regardless, eventually she left. They got to a bridge. But that's where they met Monterey Jack, who turned face after being rescued by Littlepip, like a scumbag, during like a trader raider crud. I actually don't remember specifics, but I do know specifically that it involved Monterey Jack being two-faced. And then eventually, you know, I think he ran off or something. Littlepip continued onward, now wearing raider armor, and then basically met Calamity after getting shot. They got shot, then something about the, like, Calamity apologizing or something like that. That was, like, chapter 4 or 5. And, then I believe pretty much essentially, well, they're at Appaloosa. Honestly, I don't know why I'm trying to summarize a whole freaking book. I don't know why I'm trying to do that here. Why am I doing that? Why am I trying to summarize the whole story of Fallout Equestria in a horrible summary during a stream when I could literally make a video explaining it a lot nicer? What am I doing with my life? This doesn't make sense. I'm realizing it. I guess part of me doesn't just want to let go. This is the last stream, you know? When I end it, that's it. Fallout Equestria is done. It's done. It's done now, but like the moment, it'll be rough. I guess I'll just skim through everything real quickly. I know, sub-fandom is wild. Oh, there it is, the title card. Next. God, these chapters started so short and then they got so long. That's crazy. Oh. You're not gonna miss the stream. You're gonna miss the series. I'm gonna miss the series. I'm gonna miss the stream with the series. That's the way to look at it. Equestrian Wasteland. I'm just skimming through everything here. Absolutely wild. What a journey we've been through, honestly. Cause it's like it's one of those things, you know, it doesn't matter who you are, the words I'm going to say are going to appeal to everybody to a way one way or regardless. But like you don't realize how good something is. Something you have is until it's gone. And after this it's gone, you know? It's all good. It applies from literally everything, from like funerals to maybe your childhood or something like that. It's crazy. It'll appeal to everybody. It doesn't matter who you are, you're gonna feel that. Stream a video here? Sure. What is it? I guess I probably could. I think, like I said, I'll probably maybe do a stream dedicated to just watching Fallout Equestria animations, memes, videos, that kind of crud, you know? One send off to the main series before moving on to anything else. Absolutely wild. I just crazy. You just don't want it to end. You gotta let go. Oh. All right, we got an animation here. We do have an animation here. Hold on, let me just back out. Let me back out, open it up. All right. We got a trailer here to watch. Oh, hold on a second. I don't like this letterbox here. Let me move this to my other screen. 1 second, folks. I want the whole thing to be visible. I don't want to stream just half of it. Come on. Come on. Who would I be if I did that? Okay. Is this the right one? My gosh, I hope this is the right window. Oh. No? That's not it. Hold on. Hold on. Bear with me. Bear with me. Bear with me. That one. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Okay, let's go back. Now we got it full resolution now. Mr. Handy! Mr. Cake! Mrs. Cake! It's everybody! The whole family!
Our equestrian way of life. Isn't it grand?
Oh my god, no way, Scootaloo!
And cupcakes with muffins. Seems perfect. But what if it's not? Friends, your future may not be so secure as you think. Where would you be when the megaspell hits?
Oh my god.
Your family.
That's so intense.
State-of-the-art underground stable from Stable Tech today. That's right, Mr. Cake. You and your family can wait out the horrors of the megaspell devastation. And Mrs. Cake, the stable will have all of the amenities of your modern-day home, and it's attractive. And Pumpkin Cake, in the stable, you might meet your special sun pony.
Oh, how adorable.
On the surface. And in the few short years, you and your stallion.
Oh, adorable. Babies.
You will have lots of friends to play with. Reserve your family spot in the state-of-the-art underground stable today.
Based off of the literal freaking Fallout trailers, dude. I love that. Oh, it's still going. Do, 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 do. Oh god, yes. See, I love the Fallout 3 opening. That's what this reminds me of. Oh, come on, give me a Steel Ranger. Come on. Or Littlepip. Hey, I'll take it. Oh my god. It's the whole series. I believe that's Blackjack, right? I don't know, actually, I don't know that one's name. I know their name. I know it's Pink Eyes, but like, that's it. That's all I know. Ooh! Yikes. Friendship is magic. Oh, that's so gritty. Enclave. Uh-oh. That does. Whoa, wait a minute. What the heck? What the heck? So that's a lot of friendship. That is a lot of friendship. Lyra. Wait. Oh my god. Look at that. Lauren Faust. Oh man. That is awesome. 2015. See, I said it before. In MLP, AU, oh my god. The Combine invading, it would be perfect. It would be a perfect thing. I've thought about it before. Oh my gosh. Photoshop, Illustrator, Flash, After Effects, Premiere Pro. Oh my gosh, dude. Wild. Absolutely wild. Pink Eyes and Project Horizons. The Project Horizons, bro, I'm not sure will ever happen. That's way too long. This took months just to even get to where we are. I'm not sure if I have it to double what I put into this. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Well, folks, I think that is a perfect time to end this. Feel free to hit up the comments section. And I bid you all farewell.